40 years ago, the Philippines had hopes of becoming the new Japan. Now, some are calling it the new Myanmar. Tens of millions live in poverty, and millions more are forced to go overseas to find work. The country is ranked amongst the most corrupt in the world, and a small group of insiders exercises an iron grip over the political and economic system. In this edition of 101 East, we ask, what happened to the Philippines miracle? It's said that just 250 families effectively run the Philippines, a country of some 85 million people. They exercise almost total control over all the political and economic decisions. Now, in December, a group of farmers from southern Mindanao province rose up to challenge that power, marching 1,700 kilometers to Manila in protest of the actions of San Miguel, Southeast Asia's largest food and beverage conglomerate run by the Cojuangco family, one of the most powerful in the Philippines. Chan Tao Cho reports.
Most of the Sumilao farmers are from the indigenous Higaonon tribe. We've been here for generations, since our ancestors came centuries ago. Farmers who have no land, like myself, work as farm labor for others who have some land.
Napoleon Merida Jr.'s family is one of about 160 in Mindanao's Bukidnon province who are fighting to reclaim a piece of prime agricultural land awarded to them in 1995 under an agrarian reform program. This is a scheme where the government buys property from landowners for distribution to poor farmers. But today, that area is out of bounds to the Sumilao farmers. Irrigation on this fertile plot, measuring 144 hectares, the size of about 180 football fields, merely provides a washing point for those who sneak in. The previous landowner, Noberto Kisumbing, had successfully reclassified this as an agro-industrial area, which exempts it from the program.
This application for conversion was approved. It is with the condition that he should develop it within 5 years. He is not allowed to sell it, and if he sells it, the buyer of that property is also subject to that condition.
The landowner did not develop the plot as promised, but sold it to San Miguel Corporation in 2002. Famous for its beer, the food conglomerate is now building a state-of-the-art pig farm on the land.
Insofar as the amendment of the development plan is concerned, that was the violation. Because hog farm there was not even mentioned in the development plan.
Without the financial muscle for a long legal battle, 50 of the Sumilao farmers marched to Manila in protest. From October 2007, they traveled for 2 punishing months to take their case to President Gloria Arroyo. She promptly issued an executive order saying the land falls under the agrarian reform program and therefore should be distributed to the farmers.
I'm happy the president issued an order in our favor, but I'm sad she did not issue a cease and desist order for San Miguel. They haven't stopped construction on the land.
Instead, the food giant responded with a full-page newspaper advertisement spelling out how the project would benefit the province. It promised to generate employment and provide farmers with the financing and technology to improve productivity. It also said local government tax revenues would increase by 30 times eventually.
All these benefits they're talking about, I don't believe it. The pig farm will use sophisticated technology that we know nothing about, so it can't hire us.
The point there is, this land legally is subject of the agrarian reform program, and that the government has an obligation to implement a social justice legislation like this.
Here in Cagayan de Oro, more than an hour's drive from their homes, the farmers have set up camp outside the regional office for the Department of Agrarian Reform. They are taking turns to stick out here in batches, hoping to keep up the pressure while waiting for a satisfactory outcome. The Sumilao farmers lost patience when the president's order began to look like a hollow victory for them. For more than a month, they waited for the government to formally declare them owners of the land. But the authorities said San Miguel Corporation was entitled time to prepare an appeal. In the meantime, construction of the piggery on the ancestral land continued unabated. 101 East contacted San Miguel Corporation for its reaction to the matter, but it did not respond despite repeated interview requests. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church, an influential institution in the Philippines, put its weight behind the farmers in this David and Goliath battle. Religious leaders tried to improve communication between the farmers, the company, and the government.
I feel that there is not enough political will to push through it. And because if you put a cease and desist order, that means all these constructions would stop. How would they be able to use the land if they're already cemented with buildings there?
We still have to wait for the order to become final and executory. We cannot really move, we cannot really start the process until such time that we receive the order of finality of the case.
In this country, there are laws and there are laws. And in a thing like this, the poor do not get an equal break in the law. The poor could not pay for the lawyers to could better interpret the law to their favor.
And for the landless farmers, the implementation of the law could decide the fate of their families for generations to come.
I'm not afraid, no matter how powerful the company is. The law is on our side, and we'll do what it takes to ensure justice. I believe in God. He created land not for a few people, but for everyone.
Joining me now in our studio is Bobby Tuazon, who heads the Center for Empowerment in Governance in the Philippines. On the satellite from Manila, the president of the Federation of Philippine Industries, Jesus Aranza, and in Bangkok, John Neri, senior editor at the Philippine Daily Inquirer. Gentlemen, thank you all for being with us today. The problems of land ownership, land reform are endemic to all poor and developing countries, and the situation we've just shown you is not unusual in many ways, but it's fairly common in the Philippines. Jesus, let me begin with you as a businessman. How much conflict is there between the interests of business and companies like San Miguel, who come in promising to develop business, offer jobs, develop communities, and the local land ownership situations? Is this a problem in the Philippines, or was that just a fairly unusual case?
Well, it's a problem, but I'm quite familiar with the issue because I've been observing what's going on. I have been making some statement regarding this. And this issue actually is, I cannot go into the legalities because there is a pending case brought by the owner, the previous owner of the land, trying to ask the Supreme Court to issue a TRO. But allow me to say that this particular land has been transformed into a agro-industrial. And what San Miguel is doing is really part of agro-industrial. Whether the conditions are tied up with the sale, that's another story. That's a legal battle that should be settled.
Right.
But the issue is
we must say that we have tried to get a representative from San Miguel in to comment on this. We've had a bit of trouble in doing so, and unfortunately they have been unable to contribute to this program. But Bobby, I don't want to focus specifically on this case. I just want to look at the general conception of how much of a problem this is. Now, do you agree with Jesus that this is an unusual case, or do you think that this is endemic to the Philippines system?
The strong position of peasant organizations, these are composed of farmers and tenants who are supposed to be the beneficiaries of this law, the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law, is to the fact that it is a myth, it is a fake, and that it has led instead to the concentration of lands farther into the hands of the landowners, many of whom are big landowners like Eduardo Danding Cojuangco, who owns San Miguel Corporation. That's precisely the point about this law. when the law was approved and enacted by Congress in 20 years ago, the composition of the House of Representatives was to the effect that it was largely dominated by landlords. Many of the members of the House of Representatives were landlords.
John, let me come to you. There, in a way, we've touched on the key elements of this conversation. That is the landlords, the government situation, and who holds the power. Now, there are many people who will argue that the entire Philippine system is utterly broken because the power is held by a narrow spectrum of people who exercise it in their own interests. Is there merit in that argument?
Well, I would argue with the contention that it is utterly broken. It is broken in parts, but it still works. It limps along, you might say. The Sumilao case is a special case in the sense that many of the players are high-profile individuals or institutions. You have San Miguel Corporation, but you also have the Catholic Church, which has put its weight behind the marchers. And you also have a very high-profile media event, the 1,000-kilometer march from Sumilao all the way to Malacanang. So it's a special case in that sense. But it's also typical in the sense that we're talking about the distribution of power. In the end, we're talking about the distribution of power, who gets to use it.
It's been estimated that the 10 richest families in the Philippines are worth about $12.5 billion US, which equates to the net worth of the next 10 million households, the poorest 10 million households in the country. Don't you find that to be a somewhat skewed situation that may be, in fact, the cause of the problem?
I agree with you, but we are trying to improve the system. We are trying to invest in rural areas so that we can bring about development. Because what is happening in our country is there is the only development in almost all urban areas. But the present dispensation is trying to disperse development so that it can reach the poorest of the poor in different communities.
Okay.
And this is why San Miguel is investing that much. But let me just say that this could not have been of this magnitude had it not been for the Catholic Church coming into the picture. And what is sad, what is lamentable is the fact that while they are ordering a private sector to distribute the land, they are also fighting that the church land be exempted from the tax.
Bobby, the contention there basically being that the rich classes are working to improve the system. Do you believe that?
I don't think so. If that's the case, then there should be no cases such as the Sumilao farmers march from Mindanao to the presidential office.
Okay.
If that were the case, then I think the income that you just mentioned, I think it's actually 20 families having that enormous income equivalent to the collective income of 50% of the families in the Philippines.
We've set the scene. Let's take a break there, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about what all this adds up to and how that will impact the governance structure of the Philippines. We're going to come back in a couple of minutes and also bring you the story of some farmers who've been fighting for almost 2 decades to get the land they say is theirs. Stay with us. We're back in a couple of minutes.